And for those of you not familiar with Nextdoor, we're the place where you go to connect to the neighborhoods that matter to you. So I won't go into a big a Nextdoor sales pitch, but I'll turn it over to Jared to introduce himself and share a bit about his current role at Resident.
Thanks, Matt. So Jared Brody, I work at Resident, and I am in charge of all acquisition, so VP of acquisition for all of our brands. So we are a house of brands, mainly in the DTC metro space, Awara Sleep, Nectar Sleep, Dream Cloud Sleep, and Level Sleep, as well as a linens brand, Clover Lane.
Awesome. So before we dive into some of what's going on in your world today, I'm curious, you've built an amazing career in the D2C space. I've been in the space for, I think, 25 years now. And I'm curious to, how have you seen your role as a performance marketer shift to meet sort of the consumer demands of today? Early on in your career, you were more in the telemarketing world, and now all of a sudden you're in this digital world with a lot of data flying at you, and a lot of different data points that you're able to tap into. I'm curious from your perspective how your role has changed throughout.
Well, I think you did touch on it as far as the medium. I mean, I think the underpinnings of direct response and marketing are still largely the same as far as traditional sort of awareness, interest, desire, action. Someone needs to be aware of your product, want it, and take action. Now, how they become aware of your product now is a bit different, and those mechanisms for making people aware and consummating the sale are quite different. So it's not just TV or telemarketing, like you're saying, or print. All the channels are much more fragmented. So as a marketer, you definitely need to be engaged in all these channels, understand all these channels, be in all these channels, and make sure you understand how they all fit together. I think that's the main difference.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously everyone's time starved. They're doing 1,000 different things, or a second screening, third screening, throughout much of their day. So finding time to get in front of them with an impactful message has become ever more important. A lot of your career, as I touched on, has been sort of in these performance marketing roles. And I think when most people hear that, they think bottom of the funnel, conversions, really getting people to that purchase at the end of the consumer journey. But in order to get someone there to that part of the funnel, at some point you have to engage with them. You have to drive awareness of the brand, of what product you're selling. How do you balance that brand narrative, the consumer engagement, with some of the performance goals?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that yes, performance marketing has definitely been the cornerstone of what I've done in my career, and even what I've done here at Resident for the better part of my 2 years here. And I think that's exemplified in the fact that unless you have been in the market for a mattress in the last 4 or 5 years or so, you probably haven't heard of any of our brands, and that's intentional. We want to try and focus on people that are in market for mattresses, have shown intent that they're buying a mattress, and that drives very efficient performance marketing. But as we have grown, we need to drive more brand awareness, but still in a measurable way. So we have expanded and try to engage consumers and more in the top of the funnel in channels like linear TV, OTT, audio, to name a few, but we won't compromise on measurement. So we still need to do that in an efficient way. And I'd say that that's the main difference, is now we're engaging users more in the upper funnel rather than just sort of capitalizing on the intent when they're there in the lower funnel.
You touched on it there briefly, as far as measuring things, in a very key aspect of your role. People, as we talked about the other day, are purchasing mattresses maybe every 5 to 8 years, 10 years if you're like myself. Try and push it, but you sort of have to stay in front of them, right, at some point, to make them, again, brand aware, and then hit them in that moment, because the decision can come pretty fast. And if you miss them, you may not get another crack at them for a few years, unless their family's expanding, or there's another house to furnish, or a mattress that needs replacing. How do you guys look at the data? What are some of the leading signals for you that say this person's in market, besides someone potentially coming to the website and doing research? Are there other life stages or things that you guys look at that say, based on our data analytics, this person is more likely to be in that sort of final step in their journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think there definitely is intent, like you mentioned, from people come to the site, from in-market audiences, all of that typical stuff. Now, I think what's that drives the targeting. I think what's important is understanding what is working as well, because even if someone is not in market for a mattress, there is a good chance that we can convert them as well. So I think it's really important to understand how all the different channels and all the different targeting do fit together. And we have built an internal process to do that. So as opposed to just relying on what you would think as a marketer is a sound decision, hey, someone is moving, they're going to need a new mattress. It's going a little broader than that as well, and really casting a wider net and understanding how all of those channels and that broad distribution is fitting together.
Got it. And you touched on it again there as well with your own multi-touch attribution capabilities that you guys have within. You mentioned that it's sort of a proprietary thing to resident. Talk me through that as far as choosing to do it your own versus using one of the existing players. Was that a key part in your strategy to make sure that you guys are assigning the value that you feel is correct for the different path that a consumer might take to conversion, or did you kind of feel that you could build a better mousetrap?
So as a company, part of our ethos is becoming the experts in what we do. That's not just marketing, it's not just manufacturing, it's not just shipping mattresses. So we have an incredible data and analytics team. I would definitely say they are world class. So we know our business like no one else, including third-party agencies or third-party companies that are specifically designed to create MTA models or marketing mix models. So we did build it in-house, and we did also work with someone in the space. And what we found is that we were more comfortable with what we built ourselves, which I think is really incredible to put in context, that we are a consumer goods company that are building our own multi-touch attribution models, our own marketing mix models, and really putting all this stuff together as a product marketing company, not as a company that sells itself on providing those services for others. So I think it's just a testament to our data and analytics team that we're able to do that.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear that you guys have taken that step to build those models, because obviously those are highly in depth and driving some of the decision making on the front end that you guys are all doing with your optimizations, and probably even from a business decision making in how you optimize the overall business. Is this a strategy that you've used in previous roles, or is this new for you to be this closely aligned with the data team?
I did use this strategy in previous roles, but I thought I was doing it well, but not nearly. I have a different perspective on that now. So I mean, data is the linchpin of all company-wide initiatives. It's not just marketing. It is from operations and where we stand on backlogs of shipping, how much we're shipping, that data that informs what messaging is on site and how customer care should communicate with customers. It's the underpinning of a lot of the decisions that I make in marketing, and understanding what channels are more effective versus others, how they fit into the mix, and of course, finance as well. We all want to be working from the same set of data, so I can't think that I have one set of costs with finance thinking I have another set of costs. But I did think I was doing it well, but not nearly as well as I'm doing it now.
So your current role has you overseeing basically everything: search, social, programmatic, OTT, CTV, linear TV, video, direct mail. We go on and on and on. How do you see that fitting into how do you see each channel fitting into sort of your consumer journey with your customers, and how do you, I guess, look at them in different ways to engage with the customer? Are there certain tactics that you only use on certain mediums versus others?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but it all comes down to the data and our ability to measure. I mean, when I look to bring on new platforms or new channels or optimize existing channels, it's really based on, can I measure what I am doing? And that is a very black and white decision when we take a look at channels or new platforms rather. If I can, my RFP is generally, this is what I need to measure. Can you supply it to me? It's not a 4-page PowerPoint on capabilities. I don't need all that. I just need to know that I can get the data in-house to our data warehouse work with it with our data and analytics team and make sure that I can understand where each of these channels fit into that process. So it is, as we go into different channels, which are more upstream and are typically harder to measure, like TV, like OTT, like direct mail, like audio, we still try and look at all of that through the same lens. And I mean, for instance, we could track podcasting, we do track podcasting and treat it like it is an actual display banner. So we understand that there are certain channels that are, of course, more geared toward lower funnel conversions, but those lower funnel conversions will not happen unless you are in front of the consumer in some of these other channels. And we put a lot of weight on getting in front of new consumers. And that's, that's something that we continually fine tune with our MTA model, as far as the tolerances for, is the visit or the exposure to our brand new? Is it repeat? What happens after that? What's the total path length? What's the lag between that and the conversion? And all that is put together into a model that's continually fine tuned.
Love that. So fascinating to see how granular you guys are able to break down the data, to follow, to retarget, to make sure that you're delivering the right message. And we talked about this a little bit the other day too, like knowing where someone lands on your landing page. And if they're interested in financing, being able to serve them a finance, something more about your financing capabilities, versus if they're interested in a king mattress, you want to make sure you're not sending them an ad for a twin mattress. And those different data points that, again, as you said, all comes back down to the data and the cleanliness of the data that you guys are able to see from, through your own data warehouse there. I guess one thing that I wanted to touch on, because the topic of today's event broadly is the consumer engagement, which comes at a really interesting time, as earlier this week, two of the largest consumer engagement platforms, Facebook and Instagram, were down for hours. Created a lot of chaos for consumers. A lot of employees were left trying to, couldn't fake that they were working anymore and had to actually probably buckle down for a little bit. And marketers who rely on those channels were left in the dark, as there wasn't a lot of information coming out as to what was down, why it was down, and what was actually happening to the ads. How did your team react to the unexpected outage?
Well, the first thing we took a look at was, are we spending money and not getting the results that we would expect? And what we saw pretty quickly was, no, we weren't spending money because the impressions could not be served. So that was fine. And what we did when Facebook came back online after about 5 or 6 hours was, I was very anxious and very attuned to understanding if there was going to be an accelerated pacing of those budgets. So trying to spend, 24 hours of budget in about 8 or 9 hours. And we did see that start to happen right away. So within that first hour, we wound up pausing all of our ads. And I think that was the right decision. We had a very efficient day. Now, I don't think, a long-term strategy is going dark on paid social. I mean, a mattress is a considered purchase. So unless there was someone that was hell-bent on buying a mattress in those 5 to 6 hours from a Facebook or Instagram ad, I don't think we happen to miss out on much. But again, I am not advocating for stopping paid social media. It was just, I think it was just a one-time event.
So we know that a highly engaged customer, that they buy more, they promote more, they're going to be loyal customers of the brand and brand advocates. As a primarily D2C brand, as we talked about the other day, you do, and probably touch on this, that are in 1,000 retail outlets as well, but known as more the D2C to begin with. How do you drive consumer engagement without the abilities to necessarily see a storefront on a daily basis, where some of you think about Caribou Coffee, where obviously people can go in and engage in the store? How do you guys think about that difference between the D2C aspect and maybe your retail partners in engaging with the consumers in two different ways there?
Well, there's definitely two different paths there. As far as what we do to keep the consumer engaged online, you touched on a little before, but we generally know why someone is coming to us. Like you were saying, it could be a twin mattress. It could be someone interested in financing a mattress. It could be someone interested in the sizes or a bed frame. So to keep engaged with that consumer online, we will shape the subsequent messaging to match the intent of why that customers or potential customers coming to us. And that could be from email series, from SMS, from ads that they'll see online after that. But most mattress purchases still do happen in store. We do have a couple wholly owned stores, but we are in thousands of doors, like you mentioned. And we are Yeah, we're fairly agnostic as to where that purchase takes place. It could happen at one of our great retail partners or online, and we're happy with either one of those. So we do know that if we've seen someone a lot or a few times online and they haven't purchased within a certain window, chances are they are in the majority of people that want to go to a store and see and feel and lay on a mattress. And that communication then switches. It changes to identifying where they are, assuming that they gave us, an email address and an address or whatnot, and we will try and drive them to one of our retail partners in an area they're in with very different messaging. But to us, it's what we see as far as the person coming in, what they've done in a certain window. That will then shape that subsequent messaging, and that subsequent messaging, in theory, if it's matched to what they want, it will keep them engaged.
100%. So curious, and you should have mentioned this when we were asked this when we were talking a little bit more strictly on the data piece. How have some of the changes with iOS 14.5 and the deprecation of cookies and all of those things, has that affected the data that you guys are able to leverage? Has that had a material impact on you yet, or have you seen any changes there?
Yeah, I think it's had an impact on us for the better, to be honest with you. I mean, we saw this coming. So we started building the MTA that I keep talking about, way in advance of this happening. So, we're relying on the data that gets to us and that we see and that we could stitch together in our conversion and click paths. So yes, I mean, there were definitely some hiccups along the way, but by homogenizing all the data and taking a look at not only, the platforms that are affected the most by those changes, but everything together, we're able to understand the differences in performance of a particular platform versus a different platform, and based on how we would classify that user. Is it someone new? Is it someone that's in the funnel? Is it retargeting? Is it a return customer? So it was definitely challenging, but I think we overcame it, and I think we're doing. I don't want to jinx myself. I think we're doing a good job. I don't think we'll ever technically overcome it entirely, but I think we're pretty happy with what we're doing right now.
Love that. So, Resident has been an incredible success story over the last 4 years, rising from a single brand in Nectar in the mattress space to include Dream Cloud level, Awara, and then launching Clover Lane in the linen space. And as you've continued to grow and expand the brands under the Resident portfolio, how have you evolved your consumer engagement strategy? And then additionally, do you have a different approach for each brand? I mean, you have a few in the mattress space. How do you sort of segment your audiences? I think we talked a little bit about, well, we've talked a lot about the data piece and matching it once they're on the site, making sure you're serving them the secondary ad. But how do you sort of individually target the different brands, knowing that in some ways, all mattress brands are going to be competing against each other. And so you have some sort of competitive brands, but obviously there's synergies as well from your perspective.
That is definitely a good question. And all of our products have their unique selling propositions and their own brand voice. And that, this is sort of the opposite of focus on the data. It's really, you do what makes sense. So Nectar is an incredible value for the product itself, and it's pretty irreverent in tone. So that shapes the communications for Nectar. Dream Cloud is more masstige and luxury, and that will inform how we message and how we engage with consumers there. And Awara is organic. So I think it's the brand qualities and brand characteristics that do shape that messaging and that engagement.
Got it. And we talked a little bit about this the other day as well. I mean, the mattress is a longer sales cycle potentially, longer gaps in between purchase, but Clover Lane is, potentially a more frequent purchase. So there's a little bit of a different strategy there. If you want to touch on that as well, as linens are going to be purchased more frequently than bed is, right?
Correct. Yes, 100% correct. So, Clover Lane is our opportunity to really stay engaged with it, with a consumer that's been, a member of the Resident family as far as a mattress purchase. So, that is, now linens aren't purchased every week, of course, or daily, but they should be purchased a little more frequently than a mattress. So this does give us an opportunity to stay in front of those people, of those consumers, with a message that we know is relevant. We know they have a mattress, so we know they're going to need linens. And chances are they got some very similar linens when they purchased the mattress, and they're very high quality. So so the message, yeah, I don't want to say it takes care of itself, but it's a logical message to the consumer. And if they're happy with the product they have originally, and the vast majority are, then this is a good strategy for us as far as staying in touch with that user and trying to get them to purchase in flow for minutes.
Now, do you guys ever talk from the parent brand out to the consumer, or is everything from the individual sub brands, if you will?
All the communication is from the sub brands. We did have we do have some packaging that has the resident label on it, as far as some pillows, some sheets, and a mattress protector. But I mean, all the communication is from the brand stuff.
And from your team setup, do you have individuals that are focused just on Level or Nectar, or is it more a paid by platform? How are you guys sort of structured on the back end?
We have channel managers that manage within each channel, depending on how big the channel is, or maybe a channel lead. But mostly we have we're pretty lean. So a channel manager will likely have more than just one particular brand, or more than one country, because we also are in the UK as well.
Got it. So the D2C mattress space sprung up seemingly overnight in the last few years, and has become quite competitive with players like Casper and Purple that have probably been out there, have been out there longer than Nectar, and really probably promoted the brand to begin with as they sort of launched the space. How have you differentiated the brands to not just compete on price and give them sort of a different look? You talked about the brand voices. Is there anything else that you'd say that you've tried to differentiate there to make sure that you stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, so I think price and value are two very different things. Anyone can sell a low price product, but doesn't mean people will be happy with it. Now, I think what we pride ourselves on all our brands is the value that a consumer gets from our products. Now, many retailers will tell us that our products should be priced hundreds of dollars more based on what they sell in store to those same very consumers. But we keep the prices where they are to deliver value. Now, as we evolve as a company, our products are getting more sophisticated and more differentiated. And a good example of that is the Nectar line, where right now, within the past year, we have launched 2 additional Nectar products. One is Nectar Premier Copper Mattress, which actually has copper woven into the cover for additional cooling properties. So, as we evolve as a company, I mean, remember, we're still only 4 years old. As we evolve as a company, we will evolve our products more, but I think value, not price, but value, will always be a cornerstone of what we do.
Love that. And I guess continuing with a question in the sector, many of the original D2C brands like Purple and Nectar have moved into the brick and mortar locations as well, with their own stores, as well as getting into some of the larger national mattress retailers. What has sort of been the driving force behind that decision to evolve the business beyond sort of just the bed in a box, if you will?
I mean, you really want to meet consumers where they are. It certainly it's shifted over the past year and a half, but most consumers will still buy at a retailer. So I don't, will that change more? So maybe we'll revert back to the norm. Maybe, I'm not really sure, but we definitely want to be wherever a consumer is. So we definitely want to be in retail. And I would say, we, like I was saying before, we're sort of agnostic as to where we sell, but I do also think that being on retail floors in some very, very well known as well as some smaller retailers, it adds legitimacy to the brand and to the products. So I think if someone can go into a store, see it, feel it, talk to an educated sales representative about the product itself, I think it's just a whole different engagement with that consumer than just having it online and just being able to look at it online.
And you shared the other day, pricing is the exact same, whether it's in store, whether it's online. There's no difference to the consumer. It's really, again, meeting them where they want to be. And if they feel that they've got to go lay on the mattress, then they've got options. If they're already a hook, line, and sinker, then they can pull the trigger and do it online.
Okay, yeah, 100%.
So I guess, backing up a little bit, beyond your roles as a performance marketer, you've also launched two companies, one focused on how people interact with their environment, taking some modern or some everyday items and trying to build a better version of them, and another a palm frites company. I guess being an entrepreneur for a small business it is a different ball of wax than being, working for a larger company or even a startup at the point that Resident is, because you're forced to wear many hats. How did those two experiences shape your career, and how do you think about how did it make you think about engaging with a customer in maybe a different way?
I think the best example is probably palm frites, which was a organic raw vegan coconut chip. It was very different than what was on the market at the time. Most were sweet chips and dessert chips. This was savory. Garlic and parsley was a flavor, barbecue, there were a couple of others too. But yes, I wore many hats. This was my side hustle at the time. So I was going to the kitchen with my partner who was a chef after work. I was dropping off orders at the post office in the morning. I was running to stores that we were in to do demos during lunch, and then I would come back to work. But through all of that, I got really firsthand to see the engagement with consumer. And most of what I saw rather, was the surprise and delight of when someone would actually try this product. It wasn't exactly the norm, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And it was very, very different than what was on the market. So to actually go from an idea to actually produce something, to have someone actually eat it and tell you that it was good, was phenomenal. It's not around. So, I mean, I guess, successful, I'd say successful is in the knowledge that I learned, and I would not change it. I mean, I put the money into it myself. It wasn't a huge amount, but I would not take that money back to unlearn what I learned. And part of that actually is that surprise and delight, which I think should be how you try and engage with the consumer, no matter what it is. Is it the value of the product? Is it the quality, or just how you service and communicate with them? So I get to see that firsthand. I mean, I got to see it at events I would do on weekends. I would call customers up that were ordered from New York. I would say, hey, I'm in New York. You want me to drop your order for you? And they would be shocked. And I would go to their door, I would drop it off, and I'd have conversations with them, and it was great. And that was the engagement that you hope to have with all consumers, no matter what the product is.
Yeah, I suppose when you're making a food product and you serve it to them and you watch them eat it, you can get a very very honest opinion on what they think about the product right there. You don't need words or clicks to measure that.
For sure.
So I think it's been touched on in every segment today, but the pandemic has changed a lot for everyone, and certainly for marketers. How has the pandemic affected Resident's marketing, either positively or negatively? Has that changed some of the ways that you think about it? I guess, I know early on in the pandemic, many of the retail locations for mattresses were closed, and as people were trying to understand how communicable this disease was, did that positively impact the D2C angle? Did it net neutral? How did that sort of adjust the way you guys were thinking about your marketing efforts in the business overall?
Yeah, it was very clear for us. I mean, we were very regimented in what we did up until that point in time, as far as having goals and targets per channel and per customer. Was it a new customer retargeting? Once the pandemic hit, that changed a lot. From a marketing perspective, I was given a lot more freedom to be more fluid with how we operated, and we became very opportunistic. I'd say that we've had incredible and efficient growth probably since day 2 of the pandemic. So we are opportunistic marketers. We saw what was going on. And as the pandemic continued to evolve, the trends were that people weren't traveling. They're spending money on their home. They're spending a lot of time in bed. So we were, the right product at the right time at the right price. So we definitely were opportunistic. I think it enabled us to capture a lot of market share that we haven't given up. So we continue to be very efficient today.
Love that. You've held leadership roles at numerous companies. I guess shifting out of the consumer engagement, what are you most proud of as a leader? And I guess how has your leadership style maybe shifted in the last year and a half, 2 years, as we've been in this virtual environment where you're not maybe seeing your team every day face to face, and you're more communicating digitally? How are some of the changes affected the way you guys interact, I guess, as a team?
So I'll take the first part of that, which was leadership and what I'm proud of. I think that I'm never afraid to get my hands dirty. I like to work. I know that sounds cheesy, but I do. I like to work. I don't know what I would do if I wasn't. So I will rarely try and ask someone on my team to do something that I haven't done or not willing to do myself. I build a lot of our internal dashboards ourselves. I run campaigns myself. Now, as I've gotten more advanced in my career, it's more difficult to do. But that willingness to and curiosity will always be there. I'm in my past two roles, in my current role rather, also, I'm definitely notorious for asking a lot of questions of my team. And that sometimes is misconstrued as me questioning what they're doing in a negative way, but it's not. I'm really just trying to learn and understand A to Z of what they're doing to see how I can help them. So I definitely need to make that clear to people, and I do, when they're part of my team. And the second part of that is, I guess, is what have we done different during the pandemic? I think so. We've been a pretty virtual company from the start. My team has been based in my boss is in Israel. Our data analytics team in Israel. I have people in the UK, up and down the East Coast, in California and Texas. So we've always been virtual. Now, since the pandemic, a lot of people have moved out of the area. So things have definitely changed some. But we didn't miss too much of a beat when that happened. But what we have done, other than typical one-on-ones and channel meetings with all channel managers, I have started to have these Friday meetings, which serve two purposes. One is to communicate to my team what I'm hearing from leadership, and also what I'm communicating to leadership for what our department is doing. I want to make sure they understand what I hear and also what I'm communicating, so we're all on the same page. And the second part of that is actually just to stay in touch and have a little fun. I mean, it can't all be work. So we started out with some very intricate quizzes and games, and we have online drawing contests. It could be any number of things, but the winner of whatever that week's contest is gets a $25 Amazon gift card. And if there is nothing to go over, I mean, there's times where, hey, you just don't want to work. We'll just be on the call and talk for a half hour to an hour and wish everyone has a good weekend, and then and call it a day and call it a week.
Love that. I think that some of the best leaders that I know I've worked with are the ones that are willing to get their hands dirty and aren't too big, despite their role, to open up a deck and add a slide in or make some changes, and are really there to help and not just be a critique, if you will. As you look out to 2022, what are some of the things you're excited about? Is there anything that makes you nervous about the supply chain issues that we're going through, the labor shortages, or I guess, to use a bad mattress conversation pun, what's keeping you up at night?
Well, I could wrap all that all into one. I mean, with respect to cost of goods and shipping and all that stuff, I leave that to the very capable people that we have managing that stuff. What keeps me up at night, what keeps me excited, and what makes me nervous is the same thing. It's measurement. But that's a good thing, because it is definitely challenging. It's a way more complex task than it used to be, and we have great people working on it, and I get to work on it firsthand with them. I'm not going to set up warehouses to receive and ship goods, but I am going to work with our data analytics team to understand our measurement and how we are able to do what we do. So I honestly think it's fun. I love doing it. I think it's very rewarding intellectually. I think it's very impactful to the company, and that does get me nervous. There's no doubt, but it gets me excited at the same time.
Awesome. Well, we've got 2 minutes left. To figure out, pause here for a second, see if anyone wants to throw any questions in the chat. I haven't seen any come through yet. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop one in. I guess I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question of, what mattress do you sleep on with all of the mattress brands that you work for?
I sleep on a Nectar Premier Copper.
Love it. So
with an adjustable base.
Love that. Looks like Dan just dropped a question in here. So how much of a challenge is content velocity?
It's very challenging. It's from static to video to everything we do. It is challenging. There is a lot of creative. I mean, we're talking about 4 different brands, 5 rather, with Clover Lane, different messaging techniques, different platforms, and that division actually sits under me as well. Not the creative director, but really like a creative, I call it creative optimizations, and director of marketing creative operations. So that's someone I work with on a day in and day out basis. We plan out what is happening on a content calendar. We have our own internal studio in California. So we really are able to churn out a lot of creative in a fashion that is probably more than others, because if you are working, I mean, we have mattresses are big, these sets are big. We have the advantage of having pre-built sets in our studio where we can churn out creative pretty quickly, but velocity is a challenge. It absolutely is. We do work with platform partners to understand creative fatigue. And I think we do a really good job of churning out that content at a high rate.
Awesome. I am being told by Ryan that it is time to wrap. So
Okay.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate you getting on the hot seat here for a little bit and taking us through the consumer journey that you're managing and driving at Resident. So it was a great conversation and great to meet you.
Same here. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Jared and Matt, want to appreciate or give you a little bit of appreciation here for closing out our event. I know that 40 minutes does go by pretty darn quick, so we appreciate you stepping in, giving us your time and your energy for the day. We appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We hope to see you back on our virtual stage soon. We hope to see you in person as well. That would definitely be ideal and pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. So I want to say thank you again to the two of you, and I want to give a big shout out to all of our viewers and listeners at home. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your interaction. We hope to see you next week when we're going to be back here on October 12th for our Women in Marketing event. Be sure to check out our website. You can take a look at any of the other live casts we have coming up. Be safe, be well. We'll see you at our next event, everyone. Thank you for your time today, and have a great one.